12 dreams for the Red Queen under crown of stone. 8 voracious beasts born from 8 restless nights. 4 nails piercing the flesh of the sinner. 1 prayer for the summoned, called by this song. 'Tis perhaps the countdown to oblivion for the once proud city of London. 'Tis perchance her inhabitants' last dance alone to face death and pestilence. Confronted by the eerie and unknown, mortals became desperate for answers. A flock's flight makes for an omen, the falling of a star a dire presage. Turning to priests for interpretation when there was no reason to be found. When religion failed, men turned to science. I saw them build such vain cities, crafting machines made for endless war. New questions flourished as old answers withered. What is darkness but lurking sun? What is wall but enslaved stone? What is glass but tortured sand? What is song but a call to arms? What is hate but jilted love? What is life but death pending?
Death. Since the apple was plucked from the sacred tree, mortality was believed to be God's punishment, a righteous snare to keep mankind from ascending to the stars. They were all so wrong. Death is not a wicked thing, nor some holy retribution. A true punishment would be to never know its sweet kiss. Awaken from the harshness and be born once more.
Welcome questers. Today we embark on a fascinating quest through the dark and mysterious origins of vampirism in Western culture. A phenomenon that has haunted our stories and imaginations for centuries. From ancient folklore to modern literature, the vampire mythos reveals much about our fears, desires, and the human experience. Let's begin our adventure in ancient folklore. Across Europe, tales of the undead have taken many forms. The Slavic Vampyr, the Romanian Strigoi, and the Norse Drauga each reflect cultural attempts to explain death and the afterlife, embodying different traits and contexts. For example, while the Strigoi often represents the restless dead who return to torment the living, the Drauga usually possessed superhuman strength and were generally hideous to look at, bearing a necrotic black or blue colour, and were associated with the reek of decay. These legends often emerged during times of plague or illness, providing explanations for sudden, unexplained deaths. Such myths served not only as a moral warning about sinful behaviour, but also reflected societal values and fears. During crises such as plagues and famines, communities feared the supernatural, believing malevolent beings like vampires were to blame for their suffering. This intertwining of folklore and societal anxieties created a deep-rooted fear of the unknown, a fear that still resonates today. As we delve deeper, the chilling historical context reveals more. During the Middle Ages, superstition flourished alongside a lack of scientific understanding. Reports of vampire sightings sparked what we now refer to as vampire hunts. Terrified communities resorted to exhuming bodies and performing gruesome rituals that ensured the dead would not rise. Specific examples, like the vampire panic in Eastern Europe during the 18th century, highlighted how these beliefs led to mass hysteria. Panic and misinformation drove these actions. Authorities conducted investigations, and if a corpse exhibited certain characteristics, such as a bloated appearance or blood around the mouth, suspicions would arise. Without scientific explanations, people turned to these dark legends, often resulting in tragic outcomes. This pervasive fear led to accusations and executions as communities sought scapegoats for their suffering. The Protestant Reformation further fueled superstition, as established doctrines were questioned. The vampire myth embedded itself deeper into the cultural psyche, becoming a symbol of moral panic. Vampires were often associated with rebellion against authority and the chaos of the times, reflecting society's struggle with faith and power. Now, let's transition to the literary evolution of the vampire. In the 18th and 19th centuries, writers began to portray vampires as more than just monstrous figures. John Polidori's The Vampire, published in 1819, introduced the charming aristocratic vampire, complex and morally ambiguous. This marked the beginning of a new era in vampire literature, where vampires became symbols of seduction and sophistication, reflecting the romantic ideals of the time. However, it was Bram Stoker's Dracula, published in 1897, that truly solidified the vampire's iconic status. Count Dracula emerged as a multifaceted character, embodying both allure and terror. Stoker's novel reflects Victorian anxieties surrounding sexuality, immigration, and the national identity. The Count's foreignness and predatory nature represented a threat to the perceived purity of British society, intertwining attraction with moral consequences and captivating readers. Stoker also drew on earlier folklore and literature, enriching his narrative with established vampire lore. He established conventions that continue to influence vampire stories today, such as vulnerability to sunlight and the need for invitation to enter the home. The themes of repressed desire and the clash between civilization and barbarism resonate throughout the narrative, making Dracula not just a horror story, but a complex social commentary. Vampirism serves as a powerful metaphor for our psychological struggles. The allure and monstrosity of the vampire reflect the tension between repressed desires and societal norms. In the Victorian era, when sexuality was often suppressed, vampires became embodiments of the forbidden, challenging conventions and allowing readers to explore their desires through horror and fantasy. As we moved into the 20th century, the vampire continued to evolve. The post-World War II era saw the vampire take on existential qualities, mirroring fears of destruction, loss, and the fragility of life. Literature and film began to explore internal conflicts faced by vampires, portraying them as complex characters, grappling with their nature and morality. This shift allowed for deeper explorations of identity, alienation, and the consequences of immorality. Contemporary interpretations, such as Twilight and True Blood, often depict vampires grappling with ethical dilemmas and the search for redemption. These narratives engage audiences with moral questions about power, desire, and the consequences of one's actions. The vampire myth has become a canvas for exploring the darker aspects of human nature, providing insights into our own fears and desires. So, what have we learned on this quest? The origins of vampirism in Western culture are a rich tapestry woven from folklore, history, and literature. These myths reflect our fears and desires, reminding us of the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Throughout our exploration, we've seen how the vampire has transformed from a folkloric figure rooted in superstition to a complex symbol that embodies the human condition. Each retelling, from ancient tales to modern literature, adds layers of meaning and nuance. The vampire serves not only as a source of horror, but also as a vehicle for exploring deep psychological and societal issues. Vampires challenge us to confront our deepest fears: fear of death, fear of the unknown, and fear of our own darker impulses. They are, in many ways, mirrors reflecting our struggles with morality, identity, and desire. The allure of immortality juxtaposes with the loneliness and isolation that often accompanies it, inviting us to consider what it means to be human in a chaotic world. As the vampire mythos continues to evolve, it remains a vital part of our cultural landscape. New interpretations allow us to engage with timeless questions about power, agency, and the consequences of our choices. Whether in literature, film, or other forms of media, the vampire story adapts to reflect contemporary anxieties and aspirations, ensuring its relevance across generations. Ultimately, our fascination with vampires speaks to a universal human experience. It's a testament to our need to understand the darker aspects of life while seeking connection, love, and redemption. The vampire, with its seductive charm and terrifying power, embodies both our fears and our desires, reminding us that within each of us lies the potential for both light and darkness. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of vampirism. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep your lanterns lit and your imaginations alive.